Hi, my name's Steve Clapham. I'm the founder behind Balance Sheet, and welcome to the latest video in our Finance Demystified series. Now, what I'm all about is making finance, investing and accounting easier. Too often people hide behind jargon and make it too mysterious. I don't think that's necessary. And what the idea behind this channel is to make it simpler for the private investor. Now, if you like this stuff, please visit my website, behindthebalancesheet.com, where you can sign up for our free newsletter, get access to our free library with over 1,500 articles about investing and over 400 fund letters. And if you want to get really serious, we do have courses for private investors. So visit the website, behindthebalancesheet.com. Without further ado then, let's get on to the fourth in our series. And I'm going to talk now about intangibles. Because there's a huge amount of conversation about how intangibles have overtaken tangibles and what do they mean and what's it all about. Well, the first part of this, I'm going to talk about intangible assets on the balance sheet. There's two aspects to intangibles, and later in a video, which I'll publish in a few weeks, we'll talk about intangibles through the P&L account. But let's start off with intangibles on the balance sheet, and there are two types. The first are internally generated intangibles, and the second are acquired intangibles. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you are a tech company and you're building software, it's quite common for you to capitalize as an asset the cost of building that software and put it on the balance sheet. In Europe, for many pharmaceutical companies, it's quite popular to capitalize research and development expenditure. Now, you can't do this with a very small number of exceptions. There's always a few exceptions, but generally speaking, you can't do it under US GAAP. But under IFRS, it's allowed. And the key thing here is you're not allowed speculative research as an asset on the balance sheet. Only later stage development costs are allowed, and they can be an asset on your balance sheet and depreciated. And you see that is quite a common thing in companies. So that's the internally generated intangibles. And then you've also got acquired intangibles. And usually goodwill is the largest component of this, but there are often lots of other categories. And they can be called customer lists, they can be called brands, they can be called other things. But really, all of these are just another name for goodwill. The accountants treat them differently because they say a customer list on the one hand or a brand on the one hand might have a limited life. Whereas a goodwill, as I'll talk about in the next video, they assume that goodwill will have an unlimited life and they test it for impairment each year. So if you've got a customer list, that will be depreciated over a life. Now, how you make up that life is a very, very subjective number. And I look at intangibles quite carefully because it often gives me a clue as to whether this is an aggressive or conservative company. And when you look at the goodwill and intangible assets note, and this is a random example, you will often see a whole host of different items. So there's the goodwill, and you can see that in the goodwill, there's no amortization at all. The brands, you can see that they've got 6.7 million of depreciation or amortization against a 30 million cost. And you can see here that this company's got a very small amount of capitalized development cost, and it's got a larger element of IT implementation costs. It's important to check this when you're looking at a company because one company may capitalize these costs and another may not. And obviously that will reflect in a very different number being shown in the earnings number, because this one will be capitalizing the development and amortizing it. That might be over a period of years. And obviously the EV to EBITDA multiples will look very different because one will be expensing the cost of that development and the other one will be amortizing it. So for one, it will be a charge against EBITDA, and for the other, it won't. So it's important to look at this note and see how much is in capitalized development, how much is in IT implementation costs, and just make a mental note of that, because obviously you want to pay a lower EV/EBITDA multiple for this company as opposed to one that isn't capitalizing it. So that was just a very brief run through of intangibles on the balance sheet. And I'll come back in a future video, look at goodwill specifically, and I'll come back in another video and I'll talk about the perhaps more important subject of intangibles through the P&L. If you've enjoyed this video, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget, visit the website behindthebalancesheet.com. We've got lots of great material there. Thanks for watching.